Hey guys, this is Comic Uno and Comic Frontline, and today I'm doing Comic Uno episode 167. And this is a show where I review all the comics I read this week in one show. So, yeah, we go worst pick of the week to best pick of the week and everything in between. So let's get started. We are going to talk about number 21. I had a pretty average list of books this week. I usually get about 20 books. So number 21, what was number 21? What was worst pick of the week? And that was a new book from Black Mask, The Skeptics, issue 1, where I wanted to like this a lot more because it had to do with like the the Cold War, and it looked interesting for the description, but I just couldn't get into this story. The artwork was okay. I mean, I liked the coloring, but the art was just not my taste. It didn't really get me into the story. And then the story itself, was just kind of boring. I really didn't care about the characters or the situations they were in, so I will not be getting the next issue. I was just pretty disappointed with this one. So the Skeptics issue 1 for me gets 1.5 stars actually. Just could not get into that story. So moving on to number 20, which is another book I was very disappointed with, which I think is the last issue of this book, which has just been a very disappointing book overall, and that is All New, All Different Avengers, issue 15. So this is a Thor-related issue, and I love Jane. I think she's a great character, but it wasn't really about Jane or our Avengers. It was a recalling of a story with Thor that's kind of related to Civil War II, and we see the story told, and then Thor's like, oh, thanks for that, thanks for telling me, and then she tells, what's his name, the protector of the Rainbow Bridge, Hemdell, she's like, oh, you know, thanks for telling me, and he knows about her cancer, and then there is like a touching moment where he says, do you want to know, like, how long you have until you die? And she's like, no, I'd rather not know that, and then the issue ends. So, other than that scene, though, I didn't really get much from this book. The artwork wasn't great for me. Very simple. Colors really collided. I mean, this is pretty much every page here. And then the meat of the story I just was not interested in. I'm like, why would you end this run with a random story like this? Just for the sake of it being tied into Civil War II. So this issue didn't do it for me. I'm hoping Avengers will be better than All New, All Different Avengers. Just take another path with the book. So I gave this 1.5 stars. Was not a fan of that one. So that's number 20. Moving on to number 19, which is Birthright, issue 20. So I thought this was a bit of a slower issue. I think this series is very much a slow burn. Still enjoying it, but I want to see the family kind of meet up a little bit more. I don't like that they're separated. I think they are better when they're together. And then I think the problem is I don't like the main plot of the other world, and they've been focusing so much on that. And I like it more when it has to do with the family. And they touch upon it here, but this issue wasn't doing it for me. So I gave it 2.5 stars. That was number 19. Moving on to number 18, which is the Wonder Woman 75th Anniversary Special, which the real reason why this is lower, it's an $8 book, and I just couldn't get into the short stories as much as I wanted to. But it's still an important book, I think, to have in your collection if you are a Wonder Woman fan. I think it celebrates Wonder Woman pretty well, but it's just the type of storytelling I don't love. I don't love the annuals that have like 10,000 short stories, because honestly, it's kind of hard to review. It's kind of hard to say, oh, well, I like this story, but I didn't like 5 other ones. But then I liked this part, but then 10 other ones weren't my taste. So it's a little harder to review them, but I thought I was a little bored with some of the stories here. But yeah, definitely take your time to read it, and you might enjoy it. But I didn't really find a lot of stories I enjoyed. But the Wonder Woman Anniversary Special for me gets 2.5 stars. So let's see what else we're up to. Alright, we're moving on to number 17, which is Star Wars issue 24. A book that is kind of on my pull list, but I don't really know what to do with because you could tell they're stalling. But I like this issue a little bit more than the others. Artwork's a little better. It's less dark. I still think think some of the faces are unproportionate, but it's better. But the actual story, you could tell they're kind of spinning in circles. They're just fighting. That's what they're doing. But it is cool to see Han and Princess Leia and Luke actually working together, because they've been a bit separated for the past couple of issues. So, not the best, kind of forgettable, but I guess it's going in a better direction. So I gave this issue 2.5 stars. Moving on to number 16, which is Outcast issue 22, a book that either is a hit or a really big hit or a really big miss. Because when this book is a hit, it's like top 5 and loving it. But when it's a miss, it's a bit slow. It's very slow. It's a slow burn. But yeah, I felt like this issue we've seen before. It's another exorcism, but nothing else really happens. It's not like they're learning much about it. I mean, it's a character we semi-know. It's one of the police officers, so we know him. But it wasn't that interesting. I love the art. That's why it is higher than some of the other books. But it just felt really repetitive in a book, in an issue we didn't really need as much. So Outcast issue 22 gets 2.5 stars. Alright, moving on to number 15, which is a book I tried out because it was kind of an, average amount of books this week. So I got Prowler issue 1, and it was okay. Honestly, it was just kind of forgettable. I kind of wish they explained Prowler a little bit more. Now, for me, I know who Prowler is. I've been following The Amazing Spider-Man. But for people who just picked this up, maybe they're a longtime Prowler fan, they haven't been reading Amazing Spider-Man, and they picked this up, I don't really think they explained the new You and Clone Conspiracy very well for new readers, which I think a book like this should do. And then also the events that are going on weren't that interesting. Like him talking to Madam Web, which is cool that Madam Web's back, but the events happening around, I guess, the corporation, I thought could have been more interesting. So I don't know if it really gave me a hook for me to want to get the next issue, or to prove that Prowler really needs an ongoing series. It hasn't really proved that to me. But I did like the artwork a lot. It's a little bit more cartoonier than I expected. I thought it'd be a little darker for a book that has a lot of dark themes about a guy coming back to life, but Prowler issue 1 gets 3 stars. Wasn't a bad book, but I don't know if it hooked me for the next issue. We'll see when the next issue comes out if I end up getting it. So we're moving on to number 14, a book that's kind of slowed its gears for the past couple issues, and that's Titans issue 4. I mean, I love the Wally story, but it's really repetitive in this issue. It's like, alright, we get it. Linda doesn't remember Wally. This Kadabra guy's bad. We get it. So it's a very slow down issue, but I mean, I still like the themes of Wally and Linda and, the team, but another negative is that the team is just not utilized that much. It still feels too much like a Wally book, and I'm totally okay with that, but you shouldn't be misleading and call it a Titans book when it's so driven with a Wally story. So I gave it 3 stars. Not a bad issue, but it definitely slows down and feels repetitive from the other issues. So Titans issue 4 gets 3 stars, but it did end on an interesting cliffhanger where maybe Wally will go back to the Speed Force, but maybe this will also push Linda to remember Wally. So I like that, but again, slower issue. Alright, moving on with number 13, which is The Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, issue 8. I like this book. This also slowed things down a bit. Not a lot got accomplished, but I love the ending. That really made it for me. I like that Tommy gave his powers to the rest of the team to try to go save Billy. That's the whole issue, pretty much. I mean, that happens in like the last two pages. But the rest of it, there's small character developments, but I don't know if you needed a whole issue to take that. I kind of wish the Green Power Ranger stuff happened in like the beginning or middle of this issue, and this would have been a lot better of an issue, but I'm excited for the next issue to see what happens. So, The Mighty Morphin Power Rangers issue 8 gets 3 stars. Alright, we are moving on to number 12. A book I really liked the first issue of, and I thought the second issue was pretty good too. And that is Skyebourne, issue 2. So I like this issue. I felt a little bit more connection with the first issue, but I like this character of him, he's immortal, finding out his sister died somehow, and he kind of wants to die. The other supporting characters where this issue gets a little weaker. I didn't really like the priest character that much, or the government aspect, but I liked our main character and the immortality idea of this issue. And then, of course, there is some really gorgeous artwork, which is definitely the biggest plus of this book. So, for me, Skyebourne issue 2, it does, I think, lower the plot a little bit, or, lower my interest a little bit from issue 1, but still a good book, and excited to see where this miniseries goes. So Skyebourne issue 2 gets 3 stars. Alright, we are moving on to number 11, which is Guardians of the Galaxy issue 13, which is kind of a filler issue, but if you like Gamora, I think you'll really like this, because it's Gamora, just getting angry that everyone was hiding, that Captain Marvel was hiding Thanos. So I think it's more of a setup for her own series coming up. But the artwork definitely, that was definitely the best part. Love the art. Really good action here. But is it a needed issue? I don't know. I mean, it's just the Guardians of the Galaxy kind of breaking apart because Star-Lord was keeping secrets, Captain Marvel was keeping secrets, but that's kind of it. It was definitely a slow burn issue, but if you're a huge Gamora fan, I do recommend it. So Guardians of the Galaxy issue 13 gets 3 stars. Alright, we are moving on to number 10, a book I've been really enjoying, and that is Silver Surfer issue 7. I thought this was fun. It was a fun issue. It's a little, I would say also a little forgettable because it's very much a one-shot of Silver Surfer feeling guilty that he's always putting Dawn in danger, but in the end they end up going to this gambling planet and put themselves in danger there, and they're taking a lot of risk over there. But then they're like, alright, we made a mistake. Let's go to this dinosaur world instead. So yeah, it's a fun issue. I like the interaction between Dawn and Silver Surfer. Was it, a needed issue? I don't know, especially because we do wait a little while for Silver Surfer because it tends to be delayed, but the artwork's gorgeous, and again, I do like the interaction between Dawn and Silver Surfer overall. So I gave this 3.5 stars. I did have fun with it, but will I remember it? I don't know. So that was number 10. Moving on to number 9, which is a little higher than I expected, but Civil War II, issue 6. So with this issue, I'm still kind of tired of Civil War II. I still don't like the idea that I feel like the book is kind of biased towards Iron Man. Like, it's really against Captain Marvel, where I think other tie-ins have done better, where you could actually pick a side between Iron Man and Captain Marvel. And also, even though I love the interaction between Miles and the other characters, which is why it's higher here and the artwork's really well done, even though there was one page where I'm like, oh, it's not as detailed as it usually is. I think it was like with the Guardians. Let me see if I can find it. And their hair looks kind of weird in this book. It's all over the place, everyone's hair. I can't find the page. Oh, here it is. Like Kitty doesn't really look like Kitty in that scene, so if I had to nitpick the artwork, which is usually amazingly gorgeous, and still is, that was the one page that was a little off. Anyways, aspect I do like about this issue, even though it's very repetitive with the whole Miles Vision stuff, you do get to see how much the superhero community cares for Miles, and that was a lot of fun to see. But everything else is like, oh my god, this event needs to end. It's exhausting, these events. They always prolong them, which is sad because I think Civil War II started out really good. And it's not a bad event. It's just, as you're reading issue by issue, you're like, alright, let's move on. The other stories are already starting to spoil this book. I don't know why we needed an extra 2 issues. So Civil War II issue 6 gets 3.5 stars. Alright, we're moving on to number 8, which is a book that's also a little lower, but I still had fun with, and that is Batgirl issue 4. This issue slows things down a little bit. I feel like that's like the slogan of this week, slows things down. But we get to learn a little bit more about Kai and all the trouble he's gotten into, and his relationship with Batgirl / Barbara, where Batgirl's trying to save Kai, but she also tells Kai, hey, stay away from Barbara, okay? But it's also this issue of trying to figure out stuff, trying to figure out what Kai has gotten himself into and how to defeat the people that he's interacting with. So, yeah, a little bit of a slower issue, but still fun. And I do like the Kai and Barbara dynamic, and I love Albuquerque's artwork. I think it's great for this run of Batgirl. So, Batgirl issue 4 for me gets 3.5 stars. And I totally dropped my book the way I didn't want to drop it, which is not in the pile. I just kind of drop next to the pile. Alright. Alright, moving on to number 7, which was a fun issue. Bit of a filler, but definitely a necessary filler, and that is Miss Marvel issue 12. I like this issue where we get to see Kamala go back to Pakistan, see what her life is, and try to reevaluate her life in Jersey, but then she realizes going to another place is not really helping her. It was nice to see her family, and to kind of see another life, but she needs to tackle her problems head on. So yeah, was it a filler issue? Yes, but was it a fun filler issue? Totally yes. It's cool to see her interact with other characters, other family members. I really like that. And to see superheroes in another country was a lot of fun. And I like the art style. It kind of reminds me of like Tar's art style, so it was a little bit cartoony and fun. So I liked it. I am very excited to see what happens when Kamala goes back to Jersey and how people react to her. But this was a fun filler issue, even transition issue between the Civil War to heaviness it was, and going into the new chapter of Miss Marvel's life. So I thought it was a pretty well done issue. I gave it 3.5 stars. Moving on to number 6, which is Detective Comics, issue 943. I wanted to like this issue a bit more, but I do think the monster storyline kind of ruined the flow of the book a little bit. But I liked that this issue is pretty much a reaction to Tim's death. Stephanie not really knowing what to do as a hero, and everyone trying to help her, and then even Bruce not knowing what to really do with this team anymore, because it just kind of reminds him of the grief he has for Tim. And then we kind of have these random villains that show up in the end. But it's fun that they all go to like the GCPD party. I always like when Batman utilizes that to show their secret identities, but then they have to turn into their bat suits. They add Luke very well here to the fold, Batwing. So I liked it. Was it the best issue of Detective Comics? No, but it was a pretty good transition issue from Tim's death to the monster story to now this. So Detective Comics issue 943 gets 3.5 stars, and that's number 6. Moving on to number 5, a book I was really surprised by, and then I'm glad to see in my top 5, and that is Teen Titans issue 1. I was surprised by this because I don't love the roster of this team, and I also don't love that Damian's on the Teen Titans, but I feel like with Damian, he's kind of a hard character to write, because either, he's really arrogant, but how do you make that a likable character? And some writers do it really well. I've seen it done in the past, but it's hard. It's a hard thing to do. Ben Percy does his character really well here, where he's still arrogant, like he's not this nice kid, but you feel bad for him. He doesn't have any friends, he has to steal people to try to create a Teen Titans team. It's a really well done Damian issue, but at the same time, it's also a good issue for the other characters just to create this team. I like the art style. I think the coloring's kind of a tone too dark, but I liked it. I enjoyed this issue, thought it was really solid, and it gets me excited to see where this friendship will go between Damian and his team. So moving on to number 4, which is Wonder Woman issue 9, a book I'm also very happy to see in my top 5. So with Wonder Woman, it starts out a little slow where we get to see Diana like shopping with her friends. I'm like, I think this is going to be a bit of a slower issue. But then really picks up when we get to see Steve and Diana kind of confront their feelings, confront their relationship since Diana dated Superman and all that fun jazz. And they agree that they're in a place in their lives where they can be together. And now it's also, of course, the mystery of trying to find Themyscira, which is the big thing. But what I loved about this issue, because I've had complaints about like Green Arrow, where I feel like it's so fan servicey, where it's like, all right, Dinah and Oliver together, we get it, but I don't feel like I deserve that yet. Where's the build-up? Here, there was a lot of great build-up between Steve and Diana to make it feel like, yes, finally, we have this relationship. I mean, it's been years of build-up to try to get Steve and Diana back together. And also, it doesn't forget the New 52 storylines, and I think that's why it feels more deserved, because it's following the continuity of the New 52, but also still following the continuity of the pre-New 52. So I just really liked the writing there. Artwork was so gorgeous, especially in those scenes. It's just beautiful, and I kind of liked how innocent it was. I just really enjoyed it. So the Steve and Diana stuff totally made the issue. But I'm also really enjoying the Themyscira storyline of Diana trying to find Themyscira. So yes, the beginning's a little slow, I'll give it that, but it really picks up the issue. So I gave this 4 stars, and that is my number 4. Moving on to number 3, a book I've been enjoying so much, and I'm so glad to see this in my top 5, and that is Jughead issue 10. A book I loved with the last issue with the new creative team, and just continuing to have fun with, where Jughead is not very good at going on a date with Sabrina. Sabrina gets angry, uses all these spells, and none of it works. It just ends up making Jughead a cooler guy, or just doing really well in school. So I liked how, and I like in general how this run has been mixing the modern and the old style of Archie in this book, and the comedy's so, right on. It's so good, and I love Sabrina as a supporting character. I hope she stays, so it's a lot of fun this issue. So Jughead issue 10 gets 4 stars, and that is number 3. Moving on to number 2, a book that I haven't been putting in my top 5 until this arc, because I just been loving this arc, and that is Action Comics issue 966. I've just been so much enjoying Lois's point of view, and it still makes me want to have a Lois Lane ongoing book. I know it won't happen, but it should happen. Want to see a Lois book. But here I think it really intertwines the Superwoman story well, because we know we lost this Lois Lane, and Lana just doesn't know what to do, and it's trying to unravel the mystery of what's going on with Lois. So I enjoyed that because I like the themes of Superwoman. And it's Lois going back to work and trying to take over this other Lois's life. And the artwork's gorgeous. I mean, just looking at this page with Lana, and it's revealing to our super family that Superwoman is Lana, and I thought that reaction was really well done. So overall, just really thought this was a great book, and a very solid book. The ending, I didn't really care about that other character showing up, but I enjoyed the book, and I want to see more Lois point of view issues, and issue 966 of Action Comics gets number 2, and I gave that 4 stars. Moving on to my number 1 pick, my pick of the week this week was Deathstroke issue 5, a book I've been so surprised with, very happy with, ever since Rose came into the book. One of my index cards fell and it made a weird noise. Anyways, yeah, Deathstroke issue 5. I really liked Rose and Batman's interaction. I also really liked Damian and Deathstroke's interaction, where Damian knows he's better than Deathstroke, or thinks he is, and you get to see that kind of fun dynamic, but then a kind of more real, personable dynamic between Batman and Rose, where Batman cares for Rose. He feels that she could have a second chance, especially because Damian's his son. So it's like, my son killed people, but I think you could turn over a new leaf. You just kind of have to understand you're doing the wrong thing. So it's Rose trying to figure out what she wants from her life, but then you do have a predictable ending with the boyfriend being the one behind all this. I'm like, yeah, I think we all saw that coming. But again, the character interactions, character moments between Batman and Rose and Damian and Deathstroke really made this issue for me. Beautiful artwork, and I just love how much this series has picked up in the last 3 issues since Rose has been introduced. It's become like a new book. So Deathstroke issue 5 for me gets 4.5 stars, and that is my pick of the week. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. This is Comic Uno and Comic Frontline. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter. Also, description below, there are links to my comic book, Like Father, Like Daughter. And don't forget to like the Facebook page of Like Father, Like Daughter. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Let me know in the comments below what was your worst pick of the week, your best pick of the week, and everything in between. And of course, I'll have a new episode of Comic Uno episode next week on Comic Frontline. So hope you guys enjoyed. And I will see you guys later. Bye.